So here's my really hot ring gear. Okay, to torque this I'm just going to use a chain wrench. So I've selected some shims to go left and right. Now these shim kits seem to come with a single shim that's got a lip on it, and I suppose the other shims fit into that shim. There's the shims on the left and on the right, and this thing has got zero lash at the moment. According to the manual there must be zero play, and then on top of the zero play you must then add 0.1 millimeter on either side to account for heat expansion of the case. So what to do? I think I'm going to go with what the factory service manual says I should do. Okay, so here's my first try. Which isn't bad for a first go, I think. I think that may even be centered. I'm going to go and check the chart. So, what I did is I put this thing in and I took a guesstimate of what the shims should be on either side. And I used the original shims from the OEM install. And I tightened it up and I found that this was too stiff. It didn't actually turn. So what I did is I moved the shims 0.25 of a millimeter over. I'm adding 0.25 to one side and I'm subtracting 0.25 from the other side. And then I tighten it up again, and then I get a very small amount of play, which is good, and this gear pattern. So I'm going to do some research if this gear pattern is good enough. So now, apparently this must be between 25 and 40 inch-pounds. So at 40 inch-pounds, it turns. Now this doesn't go lower than 40 inch-pounds. So I think I can make it a little bit tighter. First, let me get everything together and put in the seal. So now I've disassembled this several times and tried different shim settings, and I think I got something which looks as good as it's going to get. So now's the time for the final assembly. That's my backlash, which is 6 thousandths. So now that I've got a zero play in the carrier case, I'm going to add 0.1 millimeters on either side. And I'm going to use this axle spreader. Okay, so these axle spreaders are about $150, but this one I made myself for about 60 bucks. Just with some steel from Lowe's. It's quite an easy thing to make. There's a gas tube on the bottom. There weren't any tubes thick enough at Lowe's, so I bought a gas tube. Those are 1/2 inch bolts. So yeah, I'm putting the thinnest ones against the backing plate and a thick one on top. Because there's an extra 0.1, this isn't going to quite get in, so this shim in the left won't get in. But hopefully once I spread the axle, that problem should go away. Okay, so now it's in. So now everything can go back together for a final time. Okay, so the one thing I've discovered is that you do have to remove the ABS sensors, because without removing the ABS sensors you can't push this in far enough to get the C-clips in inside the carrier. So that's probably the first thing you should do when you start this project. I've pushed in the left axle. Now in goes the left clip. Now I've pushed in the right axle, and in goes the right clip. So that's all good. Here's the spacer which we put in, and what you'll notice is that the spacer is pretty loose, which is no good at all. So this is the spacer that comes with the Eaton Truetrac locker, and this spacer is actually slightly too thin because certain D35 axles required a larger distance between the axle shafts. So what I have here is some 4140 stock, and I'm going to turn this down to make a new spacer. This steel is hardenable. It's an automotive steel, and by heating it up and quenching it you can get a very tough steel, which is probably what this was made out of originally. this thing has to be heated up and then quenched in order to get its hardness. So I'm going to heat it up inside these bricks and then I'm going to quench it in oil. So I've got some used oil here. I'm going to heat it up and drop it into the oil. The question is, can I get it hot enough? Okay, so I think this is hot enough. So I'm going to grab it with a long nose pliers and then I'm going to drop it in the oil. So here is my completed spacer, which goes in there with very little play in it at all. So if I push these all the way out, this will just roll between these perfectly. So now the astute among you would have noticed that the color of the sealer has changed from red to blue. And that is because this car has actually been driving while I was trying to find a spreader tool. And when I couldn't find a cheap one, I ended up making one. So this job should actually be done in one day if you know what you're doing, and if you don't, over a whole weekend. But instead it's taken a week. Fortunately, I've been able to drive the car. So here you can see the hard drive magnet that's going to be just under the oil level. So this is a rare earth magnet that should pick up any of the junk. Okay, so we have a bead. According to the FSM, I need 35 foot-pounds here. So this silicone grease is very nice for putting around rubber things because it doesn't attack rubber. It makes it go in easily. So I'm just going to do that. So I'm going to run the car now with the wheels jacked in the air, just to let all the oil circulate before putting load onto the differential. And we're done.